Hey there, my name is AJ Pickett and I make videos about role-playing games, and lots of them. I upload twice a week with a live stream every weekend. You can also find me on Subscribestar, Patreon and Discord, Facebook and Twitter. Also, there's an option to join the channel as a member, and I welcome any questions you have in the comments section down below. As always, if you like this video or this channel, hit that like button and subscribe if you would be so kind. Back in the Nine Hells, or your local instance of the Eternal Blood War, this time we're taking a good look at the classic devils called the Cornugon, also known as the Malebranche, or the Horned Devils, standing 9 feet tall, heavily muscled with large wings, horns and a prehensile tail, weighing at least 600 pounds with tough skin additionally protected by scales. These beings are highly intimidating, very classically devilish looking, very focused, and serve hell loyally as their flying infantry. In many ways, the Horned Devil looks a bit like a smaller and faster version of a fiend, which is fitting as they are what many lesser devils are transformed into once they finally reach the lowest rank of the greater devil, so it's kind of like the apex of the lesser devils. In the many thousands of years of servitude and the fighting backbone of the fiendish armies before they can expect any chance at further promotion within the ranks of the greater devils, but the Horned Devils have a faster advancement from the get-go because they are involved in so many battles and actions, and they are known for their loyalty. We're not actively in combat, which is when a lot of adventurers are liable to encounter them. The Cornugons behave like most professional soldiers. They try to avoid doing anything that is in any way related to their job, unless basically directly ordered otherwise. The terms lazy to the bone and a pack of belligerent meatheads may be applied to them by the higher-ups in the Eternal Hierarchy, and that is saying something considering by the time a devil gets to greater devil status, it will already have been thousands, even tens of thousands of years since it first arrived in Avernus as a fresh petitioner, shrieking in torment, clustered on the shelves of despond, the blood-soaked outcropping rocks protruding from the noxious river Styx. Nobody hands a petitioner soul a handbook to the Nine Hells when they arrive. It's just one brutally hard lesson after another. Every speck of understanding is paid for in agony and suffering. Every advancement is at the expense of another. About the only pleasure to be had is a sick satisfaction that it is someone else getting tortured or stripped of rank this time and not oneself. The years roll into decades, the battles and feats of brute survival become so numerous that a soul can't even recall them all anymore, let alone who or what they were when, even if they were ever once a living mortal in the prime material plane, which many fiends begin to doubt as they have no memory of that short span of time anyway. That was just the first thing that they lost in this tempering anvil of law and evil that hammers them relentlessly into a true fiend. If you look into the eyes of a Horned Devil and they actually pay enough attention to really look back, they are the eyes of a being that considers mercy to be idiotic and contemptible. This is a soul that hates goodness in others because in the Nine Hells and the battlefields of the Blood War across the multiverse, charity, kindness, pity and self-sacrifice are not only worthless sentiments that will get you, and more importantly others around you, killed. They're also delusional and selfish behaviours that the immortal fiends consider infantile, animalistic instincts that mortal creatures have developed in order to force the protection and sacrifice of others to make up for their own individual weaknesses. An act of goodness is as annoying to a devil as the wailing of someone else's baby in a movie theatre. A good person is not someone a devil will rely on, it's just an idiot that they will exploit, and in doing so perhaps do them a favour and purge them of their infancy. The screams of the betrayed, the sobs of the soul who finally understands that they can only ever truly rely on themselves, and finally the mute grunts and groans of souls who no longer scream because they know, fundamentally, that the effort of screaming is just giving others around them some small measure of satisfaction. This is what you see staring back at you from the eyes of a Horned Devil. They could care less if you live or die. They are not fighting demons because they care about the multiverse. They're fighting because if they don't, they will be tortured and tormented, stripped of their rank, and have to bust their ass for many more thousands of years just to wind up back in the shitty position they're in right now. Better to face off and vent their anger at a horde of demons than to have to go through all that again. And so you have the armies of the Nine Hells. I think the quote from the 2nd edition Monstrous Compendium Outer Planes Appendix sums it up very well. Housed within these 9 infinite layers is a race of creatures so profane and loathsome as to be perfectly matched to their wicked environment. They are living corruption. They are hatred with great power. They are the Batizu, lawful evil to the extreme. Their own form of order and regularity is as important to them as the evil that they spread. They are very militaristic and have a rigid form of progression through the ranks. Each promotion involved days of agonizing pain as the creature transforms into the next highest Beatizu. But the increase in status and power over others justifies the brutal means they both endured and performed to get there. You see, from their perspective, the entire universe is too soft to withstand the torment and torture which is coming its way. They've seen the face of the enemy. They've seen the corruption and the destruction that the demons cause. There's no quarter and there's no room for goodness. The specifics on the advancement from a lesser to a greater devil are patchy at best, complicated by a couple of factors. One, there is more than one form of lesser devil that advances to the rank of a horned devil, and the different editions of the game have shuffled the order of the lesser devils around anyway. And two, it's possible for a lesser devil to be promoted out of turn and advanced a few ranks to become a horned devil right away. But this will most certainly cause that devil to be constantly looking over their shoulder due to the hatred and resentment such a thing inspires in the other devils around them, who had to get there the hard way. Promoting a devil uses up the divine soul-derived energy that the Nine Hells is in the business of harvesting and collecting from the multiverse. So it is a resource with massive value and severe restrictions. In order for that lesser devil to be promoted at all, it must be under bound servitude to one of the Lords of the Nine Hells, or bound directly to Asmodeus himself, which you would think would be automatic, but no, this is a formality by this stage, as most souls are bound to a Lord of the Nine Hells very early on. It's basically suicide not to be bound to any Lords of the Nine anyway. Each state of promotion, each new form carries an increased minimum term that a soul must serve in that form before they are eligible for consideration for promotion, and their record of service needs to be spotless. Devils keep very clean records. Destroying the records of a devil is as good as chopping their hand off. They hate it. Considering that a single army of devils numbers something around 100,000 individuals, you can see why they are very picky. By the time a devil gets into being a spined devil or similar, at the very top ranks of the lesser devils, they just want to do their job perfectly, avoid undue attention from their superiors until their minimal time of service is up, and then begin the process of quietly and carefully carrying out all the paperwork and palm greasing in order to go onto the list of names for possible promotion. It takes years, possibly centuries, before their name will be mentioned and they are summoned for advancement. It very, very rarely happens in the field, but it can happen. The main reason devils are not instantly promoted on battlefields of the Blood War is because the act of being promoted is very debilitating, and the devil will be unfit for combat for a while, which is useless in the middle of a military action. One of the important rules of the Nine Hells to consider is that no devil may promote or demote another devil unless that devil is sworn in fealty to it and the same Lord of the Nine Hells that they both serve, preventing any other rival devils from demoting the loyal vassals of a particular ranked devil. This makes a lot of sense when you look at the macro picture of the Nine Hells as a functioning army. The actual process of promotion involves the new form growing and swelling inside the original form, soaking up the memories and power of the devil in a ritual that can last for days of excruciating agony as internal organs are twisted, compressed, torn and burst, bones are fractured and skin stretched until finally the last memory fades, the last scrap of power is drained, and the new form rips its way out of the old one. It's quite gruesome. Shortly after, the devil then reports for duty and intense training in order to master their new form and abilities. This is one of the reasons that Avernus is so frequently engaged in huge training battles against monsters transported to the plane from across the multiverse at great expense and difficulty. This training for horned devils is not just about their new powers, it's also about their role of command that they have as greater devils over the lesser and least devils beneath them. Because in the eternal Blood War, the greatest strength the devils have is their superior organisation, rigid discipline, and absolute top-notch strategic military command structure anchored on the ability and fearlessness of individual devils who simply must never fail. The specific tactical role the Horned Devils play in massed combat is primarily taking down any threats in the air, dropping them down into the ranks of the ground troops made up of bearded devils, or into the swarms of lemures, for example. Every battle has its own quirks, and the Horned Devils, following the lead of the Erinyes, will take out artillery units and anything that can hurl a ranged spell. Horned Devils have a lot of very unpleasant things to say about Yugoloth mercenaries in that regard. When they do take out winged opponents, the weapons and tail attack that they have make a whole lot of sense, so let's take a look at those for a moment. The Horned Devil makes 3 attacks, 2 with its fork or other weapon, which is usually a polearm or scythe or something equally unpleasant, but the fork is favoured because it has or had a brutal property that is no longer included in 5th edition D&D rules. In the hands of large creatures like the Horned Devil, it is plus 10 to hit. As a polearm, it has a reach of 10 feet and it does 2d8 plus 6 piercing damage. If a regular sized person picks it up and uses it, it only does 1d10 plus their strength damage. And in 3rd edition D&D, when the devil made a critical strike with it, it did 3 times normal damage. That's its special property. The fork is also a pretty versatile tool for making vicious thrusts while in the air, or hurling down at targets like a heavy spear, or doing flyby attacks to shred wings. It's a pretty tough weapon. However, their tail attack is much better suited for that, and the reason is that it has the ability to inflict an infernal wound. The tail attack is also plus 10 to hit and also has a reach of 10 feet, so it's pretty nasty in melee combat as well. It inflicts 1d8 plus 6 piercing damage, and if the target is not a construct or undead, it needs to immediately make a DC 17 Constitution saving throw, or lose 3d6 hit points at the start of its next and all subsequent turns it has due to this gaping, bleeding, torn open, nasty wound. This is not necrotic or acid or poison, this is ongoing physical damage, and every additional time a Horned Devil gets another tail strike on that target, any Horned Devil, the damage dealt by the wound increases by 3d6 because the wound is being further and further ripped open and spraying blood and probably internal organs everywhere in a very short amount of time. The cumulative damage that even a small group of Horned Devils can do to a single target is extremely dangerous and will absolutely force a target out of the fight very quickly, as they have to either deal with those wounds or die. Remember, combat rounds are like 6 seconds long. 3 strikes from Horned Devils can inflict an average of 30 points of damage in one round. Then if the saves are failed, an automatic 30 points at the start of the target's next turn due to the 3 wounds, and if the Horned Devils attack and hit again, that's another 30 points at the start of the next round. The target now loses 60 hit points due to those drastic wounds getting worse and worse. And it just gets worse and worse until within a few rounds the Devils have literally torn that target to pieces. In many cases, 5th edition kind of waters down old monsters, but not this time. That attack method is very nasty. Thankfully, a DC 12 medicine check or any sort of magical healing is sufficient to deal with the ongoing infernal wound damage. You just have to get away from the large, vicious and flying devil in order to sort that out. So, they drop flying creatures from the sky. Horned Devils also have the option to switch one of their 3 attacks in any round for a flame attack, which they hurl with plus 7 to hit the target within 150 feet. If it hits, the ball of fire does 46 fire damage, and if the target is a flammable object that isn't being worn or carried, it also catches fire. Doesn't tell us what the ongoing fire damage from being set on fire through that is though, so let's look around. Ah yes, Flask of Oil. So anything that can burn that is not a person, being carried by a person or worn by a person, which is set on fire, takes 5 points of fire damage per round unless it gets extinguished, I guess. Handy and distracting. Most demons have resistance to fire, they're not immune to it, and the devils on the other hand are immune to fire and immune to poison, which I don't think gets enough attention in the way they operate in mass battles. I imagine that an outbreak of the Blood War waging in earnest somewhere across the multiverse is going to result in a huge cloud of toxic gases and a firestorm of fairly epic proportions, and once the battle is over and the demons defeated, hopefully, the Horned Devils will burn everything down to the bedrock in order to ensure no demonic contamination remains. A full exterminatus. Scorched earth. Take to the sky, launch a massive flame barrage. It's the only way to be sure. The Horned Devils are well equipped to handle combat in many different environments. They have damage resistance to cold and all non-magical physical harm unless it happens to be silver. Silver weapons and magical weapons inflict full damage. They can fly at normal speed of 60 feet per round. They can dash and stuff with their flight as per usual. But they only have a ground speed of 20 feet per round, which is really ponderous for a large creature, and considering they have a dexterity of 17, also a bit confusing. Why are they so slow on foot? Do they just have a relentless desire to strut around looking intimidating? Your guess is as good as mine. They are impressive though. Strength of 22, Constitution 21, Charisma of 17, Wisdom of 16, and 12 Intelligence. They also have formidable bonuses to their saving throws, which on top of already having advantage on saving throws versus spells and other magical effects, it's overkill really. There are slim chances that they're not going to save against spells and magics. They have the ability to communicate telepathically over 120 feet and have very keen senses. Their devil's sight allows them to see through any form of darkness, including magical darkness, and they have a 120-foot dark vision in normal conditions. Their passive perception is 13. They have a natural armor class of 18 and from 102 to 255 with an average of 178 hit points. As beings of the infernal planes who have fought for eons across the multiverse and spent a large amount of time when not in battle contacting and being summoned by arrogant arcanists and diabolists across the prime material plane and beyond, they most likely have ample opportunities to collect a choice selection of magic items that enhance their powers and add to their tactical abilities. Who are they being summoned by? Magic users. What do magic users do? Make magic items, including a priority of upgrading their standard issue military fork polearm with something a bit more magical and impressive. Fighting them one-on-one, feel free to give them a ring, a belt, an amulet, some ear rings, nipple clamps, and pick a few enchanted abilities that can unleash on specific rounds during combat, along with terrain and tactics and the mobility that spices it up a bit. For groups of Horned Devils, perhaps just give a specific leader of the group a powerful magical scythe or something like that, maybe some magic rope or a net. Personally, I'd rather give them something which won't potentially upset the game by falling into the hands of the player character, or if it does, let's face it, when it does, it's fairly useless to them. For example, what about a magical item that requires the Horned Devil to fire several of their flame balls into it to power one activation at a time? Something that requires infernal fire to operate is not much use to a player, but it might be cool to have them figure out that they can supercharge it and make it explode by shoving it into the power cell of an infernal war machine. The other option is to give Devil weapons and equipment that are made from horrifically transmogrified demons. Demon polearms are stupidly dangerous for any non-fiendish creature to try and control. If you are going to go with magic, make it weird, make it questionably wise to mess with, and make it easier for you as the DM to control its involvement in the story. Horned Devils are further modifiable based on the Lord of Hell that they are bound to. You can get some inspiration for those sort of traits from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and with the Greater Devils, those traits are a little more extreme, so have fun with that. We shall return to the Nine Hells soon. I am open to suggestions for what topic or type of devil you want me to talk about next. In the meantime, please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Subscribestar or Patreon, links for all the full scripts in those videos, buy some Teespring merchandise, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.